If you are trying to win an argument, you have most likely already lost the argument. And you've probably lost more than just the argument. And this is because many times we look at arguments as something where there's like logic at play. And really logic isn't the thing at play at all. It's not the operative element in an argument. What's really at stake for an argument is your identity. People argue with emotions. They don't argue with logic. And so you can even think that you're putting out logic. They think that they're putting out logic, when in reality, there's a lot of emotion involved. And when we see a lot of these town halls with elected officials and people standing up being like, you don't listen to me, you don't give an F about me. And they have, a valid point, obviously, where they're coming from. They're representing themselves, they're representing their experience, they're representing what they believe to be a culture and group of people. And then you have an elected official, which seems to be representing profits or representing an institution or not representing the people. And this is the way that people perceive it. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. When you're trying to win an argument, though, and let's put this in a frame, a lot of people see this as with family or with the loved one or a relationship, when in reality what's happening is you trying to win the argument is not only tearing apart the connection that you have with this other person or community of people, it's tearing you apart at your core, because you have now put your identity on the line and you believe it's either your identity or bust. And that is a huge thing. When people feel that their identity is being torn down, there will be no limit to that they'll go to defy logic or defy reality or say that you're wrong just for the sake of winning an argument. An argument, in my understanding throughout my life experience, is many times a disagreement. And in this video, we're going to help you understand what an argument is, why trying to win an argument may ultimately destroy you, and then lastly, what is cognitive bias and how is it tearing apart your perception of other people and yourself. So let's start with an argument, a disagreement. If you and I have a disagreement and my sole mission is to be right, what do you think is going to happen? If I'm right, then that means that you guessed it. However, if you win the argument and you're right, then that means that you're catching along. You're very clever. And when we have that, the idea is that it's a zero-sum game. For somebody to be right, somebody has to be wrong. For somebody to be wrong, somebody has to be right, and vice versa. However, I go back to what this old elected official said. He passed away some time ago. He was quite the human being. But he said, we all do better when we all do better. And I never understood that when I first heard it. I just thought it was like, well, that's redundant. But we all really do better when we do better. And for you to do better, breaking out of a zero-sum game is going to help you do better all the time, every time. When you are able to serve and then sell, or serve and then ask, or give and then ask, when your priority is to give, support, or just be involved, like give yourself to something, everything around you is going to be elevated as a result of it. Everything is. So when you're in an argument, think of an argument not as a situation where you're going to be right and somebody else is going to be wrong. However, where you can come to an understanding or learn something new or heighten the perspective and awareness of you and this other person or this group of people around you. I remember being in so many community conversations where it seemed to be the intent for some people, and it only takes one person in a group of maybe 10, 20, 30 people to disrupt the whole thing. It takes one spoke to just like crank out the wheel, the whole thing's going wobbly. It's going wiffle ball. And it can disrupt an entire community just by one person wanting to go zero-sum game. And once that happens, it becomes warfare, social warfare. Everybody's identity is at stake. Everybody's emotions are at stake. You don't argue with logic, you argue with emotion. Your emotions are at stake. And as much as you want to say that you may be entirely objective, an argument is meaning that you're not objective. You have a subjective feeling about something, and that's okay. There's nothing bad about that. It's just better for you to understand what you're getting yourself into, as opposed to thinking that, well, you're right and you have to prove it now. So that argument, and you look at an argument, number one, as an opportunity to get to know somebody better, and then better yet, to get to understand yourself better. I remember that scene in The Matrix where the guy fights Neo, and then in the middle of it, he's like, great fight. And Neo's like, why did you fight me? I thought we were gonna kill each other. And the guy's like, you never truly know somebody until you fought them. Now, you don't have to get into a fist fight with everybody, but I think getting into some type of social dissonance, or just like, oh, I never understood that. Tell me more about that. Or I don't know if I fully agree with that. Tell me more about how you feel about that. Or let me tell you what I experienced from my end. That is going to elevate both of you. Now, the idea of trying to win something, it's going to not only tear the person apart, but it's going to destroy you. This is the second thing here. Because when your sole mission becomes winning something, at what point do you get to enjoy something? And I'm sure you've heard of this term. Do you want to be happy, or do you want to be right? Can you be happy and right? I think is the continuation to that I've never heard. I just made that up now. But being right is subjective. Anybody can get into a conversation or an argument and then say, well, I'm right, you're wrong. And the other person can say, well, I'm right, you're wrong. And both people leave not happy. They learned nothing from it. They tried to tear each other down. It didn't work out. Now they leave with no joy, no understanding, no new learning, I don't know the word for it, no empathy or any kind of, I don't want to say resolve, but I feel like you leave with less humanity from those situations than you do going in, because you leave it with the chip on your shoulder, wanting to tear down more people. And I know this from firsthand experience, being in and out of press conferences, marches, protests. Not to say that that's what they do to you, but my frame going into it, this is just me, nothing to do with the subject matter or the group that I was with. My frame going into it was, I have to be right. I mean, there's no way that I'm wrong. And once I left that and said, I want to be here for support. I want to support the people that are in this right now. I think this is best to just be here, be present, like be with this person. The work that I did became enhanced by 1,000. There is no way that I could show up and be in the frame that I was before, or even remotely come close to being just a person there that was hoping to, chalk one up on the emotional scoreboard. Unbeknownst to me, I thought that I was showing up and supporting when really I could do better, could be a lot better. And instead of trying to tear people down or tear down this institution that we were speaking against, it was more so, well, how can I help people understand this institution better, so they can then want to build something better, with more compassion, and have something with a little more love and an involvement involved. The idea wasn't to win anymore. It wasn't to not lose. Winning and not losing are two different things, although they do overlap. Looking good and not looking bad are two different things, although they do overlap. That concept is going to be throughout this whole channel many times. So please get on track with that. But it wasn't with winning. It wasn't with not losing. It wasn't with looking good. It wasn't with not looking bad. It was just simply, I removed myself from it. My ego is still there, but the argument or the event is there to support everybody, to elevate everybody in their understanding of the information that's coming out. And then lastly, cognitive bias is something that is going to be extremely important to you. We're going to do a separate video on this, but for right now, cognitive bias is your brain wanting to win, not learn, searching for confirmation, and also when someone challenges our beliefs, we double down on ours. And this can happen, oh my goodness, relationships. I mean, when you're in a relationship and or even with your family, and you feel it is essential for you to always prove yourself, not just right, but just prove yourself, or prove somebody else wrong, or not let somebody else get the last word, or not let somebody else win. Like, the idea of all of that is a confirmation bias, where you want to simply want to double down when somebody else challenges you. It's an opportunity when somebody challenges you. Every time something happens that will enact a crisis within the city I live in, I do get a call many times where it's like, hey, I need you to help out. Okay, cool, let's figure this out. I don't follow the crisis. I don't match the crisis with my emotion, but I also don't look at, it's usually something that has happened to somebody that was some form of state-sanctioned violence or something like that. And it's not my immediate knee-jerk response to say, I gotta double down and we gotta say something back to this institution that just did this to this person and ended their life or whatever. It's, let's understand better what happened, not to victim blame at all, but so people understand better what happened and how it affects their community and how it affects them and their family. Because many times people get this idea of duality, where they think, oh, it has nothing to do with me. Yes, it does. It really does. And people will say, well, if it doesn't have anything to do with me, I don't have to care. I think you should care. I think it's a very powerful act to care, even when you believe it doesn't affect you. And in confirmation bias, what you're essentially doing is you are stonewalling yourself from any opportunity of learning, of empathy, of connection, of relationship, any of that. You're blocking it all off, and you're saying no. And you're doubling down on who you are. And what you're doing essentially is you're stonewalling, you're building a wall, and you're getting into defensiveness as well. I feel like all four of the horsemen are like in action during confirmation bias, my God. So all that being said, going into confirmation bias can absolutely destroy not only the relationship or connection you have with other people, but yourself. Because you then become not only an island, you become a fortress. And those cortisol levels that are going through the roof, you ready for the next argument, ready for the next disagreement, ready for the next moment to push back on somebody, it puts you in a position of kill or be killed. Like fight or flight, like attack mode and defense at all times, sword and shield. And that will make for a life where everything is an argument. Everything is warfare, and you got to win. Otherwise, and really, the gold I have found in my life has been, the cliche term would be to say, put down the shield and sword. But I can also say it's eliminating the game altogether and getting in the frame of, I would really love to understand that person's experience more. I think I have a lot to learn from them. I really think I do. I'm sure they could learn some stuff from me, of course, but I would love to learn some stuff from them so then I can be on a higher plane of connection with them and other people. So when you want to win an argument, you have most likely already lost it because you're trying to win the argument. All right, that'll do it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll definitely see you in the next one.